Tonight, someone you love will die someday. And when that happens, you will do something strange. You will gather people. You will prepare the body. You will speak words over it, place objects nearby, and then stand in a circle and cry together. You have done some version of this your entire life without ever asking why. But the answer is far stranger than you think. Most people assume that funeral rituals are a modern invention, something civilization gave us, a set of polished customs handed down through religion or culture to help us cope. But archaeologists have found burial sites that predate modern humans entirely. The urge to do something with the dead is not cultural. It is biological. It is older than language. It is older than fire. It may be one of the things that made you human in the first place. Here is what your ancestors actually did when someone died. Go back 300,000 years. Your ancestor is standing over a body. The body belongs to someone they knew, someone they hunted with, slept beside, argued with, shared food with. The brain behind your ancestor's eyes is processing something it has never had a word for. A presence that was there yesterday and is not there today. A shape that looks the same but moves differently. Does not breathe. Does not respond. What does your ancestor do? The oldest evidence we have comes from a site in South Africa called Pinnacle Point, and from a cave system in the Rising Star Cave Network, also in South Africa, where paleoanthropologist Lee Berger and his team made one of the most controversial discoveries in modern science. Deep inside a nearly unreachable chamber, they found the bones of Homo naledi, a small-brained hominin that lived somewhere between 236,000 and 335,000 years ago. The bones were not scattered randomly. They were deliberately placed. There were no signs of predation, no evidence the bodies had been dragged or washed in. The remains had been brought there intentionally, deep into a cave that required effort to reach. Homo naledi had a brain roughly 1/3 the size of yours. And yet, something in that brain decided the dead were not just matter. Something decided the dead needed to go somewhere. That impulse does not go away. It only grows. Move forward in time. Roughly 100,000 years ago, a group of Neanderthals in a cave in Shanidar, Iraq, buried their dead. This discovery, made by archaeologist Ralph Seletsky in the 1950s, became one of the most debated findings in paleoanthropology. Seletsky found pollen deposits concentrated around the bodies. He concluded that the Neanderthals had placed flowers on the graves. The image was powerful and it spread everywhere. Neanderthals grieving. Neanderthals mourning with flowers. Later researchers questioned the pollen evidence. Some suggested rodents or wind may have deposited it. But what was never questioned was the burial itself. The bodies had been deliberately placed in the earth. There were signs of care. One of the skeletons, Shanidar 1, had survived serious injuries that would have required help from others to live through. A crushed eye socket, a withered arm, a leg injury that would have made walking difficult. This individual had been kept alive by the group. They were not abandoned. They were cared for, and when they finally died, they were buried. Your Neanderthal cousins, the ones you were taught to picture as brutish and unthinking, were taking care of their elderly and burying their dead over 60,000 years ago. What does that tell you about what you inherited? Move forward again. 40,000 years ago, modern humans in what is now the Czech Republic buried a child with ivory beads and ochre. The ochre, a red mineral pigment, appears in burial sites across the world spanning tens of thousands of years. Red was chosen deliberately. Red, the color of blood, the color of life, the color of the thing that leaks out when a body stops working. Placing red on the dead may have been an attempt to return that life force. A symbolic act performed by people who knew, on some level, that the body they were looking at would never move again, and who still could not accept it. Researcher Francesco D'Erico has spent decades studying the spread of ochre use in early human cultures. He argues that its appearance in burials across multiple continents, in cultures with no known contact with each other, suggests a convergent cognitive development. In other words, your ancestors did not learn this from each other. They arrived at the same symbolic act independently, because something in the structure of the human brain generates grief, and grief generates ritual. You did not learn to mourn. You were built to mourn. And mourning, it turns out, serves a function. Psychologist Bonanno George, who has studied grief patterns for over 2 decades at Columbia University, found that rituals around death serve a very specific psychological purpose. They impose structure on a moment of total chaos. When someone dies, everything that was ordered about your world becomes disordered. The future you had planned no longer exists. The role that person played in your social network is suddenly empty. The ritual is the brain's way of drawing a line. Before this, after this, the body of your ancestor lying in the earth with red ochre on its skin and beads around its neck is a transaction between the living and the dead. You gave something. You said something. The rupture in the social fabric now has a seam. Ancient Egyptians understood this on a civilizational scale. The process of mummification was not about hygiene. It was not about preservation for its own sake. It was about the soul having a body to return to. The preparation of the body took 70 days. 70 days of ritual, of incantation, of wrapping, of placing canopic jars filled with organs beside the body. The Book of the Dead was not a book of mourning. It was a manual, a literal instruction set for navigating what came after death. Your ancient Egyptian ancestor did not just grieve. They project managed death. They gave the dead a roadmap. But you do not have to go to Egypt to find elaborate death rituals. The Toraja people of Sulawesi, Indonesia, keep their dead for weeks, sometimes months, before burial. The body remains in the family home. It is spoken to. It is offered food and cigarettes. It is treated functionally as a sleeping person. Anthropologist Roxana Watterson, who has studied Toraja culture extensively, describes the treatment of the corpse as part of a gradual social transition. The dead person does not become dead all at once. They become dead slowly, over time, through a series of rituals that allow the community to adjust. The funeral, when it finally happens, can involve hundreds of guests, days of ceremony, the slaughter of buffalo, and a carved effigy placed in a cliff face overlooking the valley. This is not strange. This is what your brain wants to do. It just wants more time. Because here is the thing your brain cannot process on its own. Death is cognitively impossible. Your brain has no natural template for the total cessation of a person. Psychologist Jesse Baring, who has studied the psychology of death beliefs extensively, argues that the human mind is simply not built to simulate non-existence. You can imagine being asleep. You can imagine being unconscious. But you cannot actually imagine not existing. Every time you try to picture it, there is still a you doing the picturing. So when someone dies, your brain does what it always does. Pattern matches. Tries to find the nearest known state. And the nearest known state is sleep, or absence, or being somewhere else. Every culture in the world has developed a belief system around what happens after death, because the brain cannot hold the alternative. Your ancestors were not naive. They were not pre-scientific children making up stories because they were afraid. They were running the only cognitive software available to them. And that software generates one consistent output. The dead are still somewhere. Which means the dead still need things. Which means you should give those things to them. Which means you build a ritual. And the ritual does something unexpected. It keeps the dead alive in the community's memory. The grave marker, the prayer, the feast in their honor, the story told at the burial about who they were and what they did. These are not decorative customs. They are memory technology. Before writing, before photographs, before any external storage for human identity, the funeral ritual was the primary mechanism for encoding a person into the social record of the tribe. The eulogy is the oldest archive. Go back one more time. Imagine your ancestor 100,000 years ago, standing at the edge of a burial. The body in the ground is someone they loved. They do not have the word love. They do not have the word death. But they have placed a stone at the head of the body. They have arranged the limbs carefully. They have added something red. They do not know why. They know that it matters. Tonight, somewhere, someone is standing at the edge of a grave. And they are doing almost exactly the same thing. The stone has become a headstone. The red mineral is a bouquet of flowers. The tribe is a group of people in dark clothes standing in a circle. But the structure is identical. The impulse is identical. The reason is identical. The body mattered. The person mattered. And the ritual is the only language large enough to say so. You never learned how to do this. Your ancestors carved it into you long before you were born.